Christophe Cotteret.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here at Junge Welt and talking with us.
Thank you.
You are the director of Disunited Nations, a documentary that follows Francesca Albanese in her quest for delivering reports about the crimes committed by Israel in the occupied Palestinian territories. You screened this documentary for the first time here in Berlin yesterday. I first want to hear your first impressions of the screening yesterday.
Oh, the screening was good because there is a lot of people, but the topic of the movie and the topic of the talk that we are talking about, genocide, it's quite difficult in Berlin. So I think for many German people, it's important to talk because during 2 years, it was like criminalized by the authorities in Germany just because you want to support Palestinian and defend international law. So it was very hard, I think, for people here to defend Palestinian and to fight for ceasefire. Yeah.
Yeah. You have presented this film previously in France or somewhere else. And my real question is, have you noticed any particularities in the reception of the movie here in Germany or in the other places that you have screened it?
I think you have everywhere people who are very indignant by what is happening to Palestinian people because we have to stop what is not a war but a genocide. And how countries in France and in Germany to continue to sell weapons to kill some people and to mainly civil people in Palestine. So, of course, people are angry against that and people doesn't want. So you have a majority of opinion. But what it changed when you show the movie in France and when in Germany, for example, the states who are themselves sign for treaties or they themselves work for international law now is moving around this international law. They block the international law on this special war, on this special genocide. So it's the context of the presentation of the movie depend on the political context, of course. I'm living in Tunisia. So when I show the movie in Tunisia, of course, it's quite okay. People say, okay, we know all that things, you show in the movie. And of course, we know what Francesca says. And we show the movie in Belgium, but the state of Belgium has no problem because to say, okay, it's not normal to kill people in Palestine. Genocide is not normal. So there is a condemnation in Belgium. There is no problem with that. Francesca, she's Italian. So we make a big tour in Italia, for example, and people after the global Sumud flotilla start to react and to support Palestinian people. Mm-hmm. So it was very nice to be in Italia because a lot of people came in the cinema and support Francesca and support the movie, and it was a very important movement. In Switzerland, for example, you have many treaties were signed in Geneva, for example. So Geneva is really the city of human rights. So when we go in Geneva, I feel always welcome. In Paris, I compare because it's very interesting. In Paris, you have a lot of people who are coming. It's people who are already agree with Francesca and I. And yesterday in Berlin, it was the first time there is demonstration in front of the cinema from people who support Israel, government of Israel, and people who are, of course, supporting Palestinian people and Palestinian rights. So, and both of the people were inside the cinema. I can understand where you support Israel if you are Israeli. What I cannot understand from these people is why they come to say, okay, we have no problem with a genocide. We have no problem to kill some children. We have no problem. And they continue to talk like a robot, like that, about, we make a war against Hamas, or we make a war against Islamists. but it's not a problem of Hamas or Islamists. The leaders of Hamas are all killed now. So it's the war against, it's a genocide against the population. So it's very hard to talk with these people, and it's very hard to talk in the context of Germany.
Yeah. Tell me, you have already said in a sentence that we are talking about genocide, but first, also for the audience, for you, what is your film about?
My film, I think it's really about genocide, and it's about United Nations. I can tell the very beginning of the movie, I wanted to make a film about United Nations. Because everybody in November, December 23, at the very beginning, everybody was shocked by what happened to Israeli people, Israeli civilians. It's war crimes. Hamas killed civilians, so you can have a resistance. The international law allowed resistance, but it doesn't allow to kill civilians and rape. And so everybody was shocked, of course, by what happened after October 7. But very, very quickly, as Francesca said, as the Secretary General of United Nations says, it starts to become ethnic cleansing. It's not only a retaliation. It's not only a war because war, you can make the war in international law. But it starts to be an ethnic cleansing, and it starts to be a genocide. So I was interested at that moment. So what can do the United Nations? You can say, okay, it's bad to make a genocide, and what? And what is happening? So I wanted to have this interest. But if you work on the United Nations, it's a huge, huge administration. You have Blue Helmet, you have diplomacy, you have Human Rights Council, you have humanitarian aid. So you have many things. If I make a movie like that, okay, it will bore everybody, of course. So, and then I met Francesca because we are a neighbor in Tunisia, and okay, she said, it's very interesting if I follow Francesca, because we can understand why it is a genocide and what United Nations can do and what it cannot do. Because Francesca is inside the United Nations, but she's outside. She has the freedom of speech because she's a special rapporteur, so she's independent. Yeah. So it was very important to enter that topic with such a personality. And but when I start the movie, the TV channel Arte, for example, or RTBF said to me, Chris, you say it's a genocide. Francesca says a genocide, but for us as a TV channel, no international organization or no international justice already says it's a genocide. So you have to prove it, and not to prove only with Francesca. Now everybody see it's genocide, but 2 years before, it wasn't so obvious for many people and for media. So it's very important. So it was, of course, because I wanted to talk about what United Nations do and did not do in Palestine and in the region. Of course, I had to talk about a genocide, what it is, and how you can fight against that. Yeah.
This topic is not new for you, as I understand. You have made other documentaries about genocide even. Can you talk a bit about your filmography, just to give us an idea of where you come from also?
Yeah, I work on especially on political violence, but not all the political violence. I'm very interested in the political violence as a topic, as a consequence of colonization. So if I work on far right in Europe, if I work on Palestine, if I work on Arabic Revolution, for example, as I made 15 years ago, or about the genocide of the Tutsi in Rwanda, for example, in 94, of course, it's not the same context, but all this violence learn us something about how we made the decolonization. It's consequences of what we didn't thought during the decolonization period. So it still continue, and so we still have I think a debt about what is happened there. So we have in our society to fight to find to decolonize institution, to decolonize our thoughts, and of course to make a regulation between North and South, and between former colonizer countries and former colonized country. And with this movie, with Disunited Nations, it's so obvious. You can see most of the Western country, the former colonizer, who is supporting Israel, and mostly the global South is supporting Palestinian. So it's a real colonial problem. It's a kind of violence was belongs to colonized problem. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mention it, because I don't know if you saw also the how other countries, like you mentioned, worked within the United Nations, and especially I don't know if you saw a bit about the role of Germany, for example, with that Annalena Baerbock is also now working there. She was former. She had a post here in the German government of international relations, and she's very famously said that the hospitals can lose their civilian protective status if they are safeguarding terrorists. And now that she's working at the UN, she has denied it. No, but I don't know if you have seen also this dynamic within the UN, because I wonder, like Francesca can put all the evidence on the table, and she has. But then we haven't seen much of behavior of the UN in consequence of the evidence. So I don't know how you have also witnessed or documented the behavior of the states within the UN.
Yes, the movie, I call the movie Disunited Nations. So we have, if we want to go a little bit deeply with that, we have to think United Nations as a global institution where nations can express themselves. It's one of the possibility of multilateralism, like some other institution. So the problem now, it's not United Nations, what they can do and what they cannot do. They try to do. Sometimes they try to do. Now, UNRWA, for example, really try to give some health, really try to give some medicine, school, and to help 6 million Palestinian refugees in the region. So it's very helpful. But United Nations can do nothing politically if the choice of United Nations is against the choice of 5 or 6 Western countries, as United States, as France, as Germany, as Great Britain. And so that is the problem. How we can think now multilateralism? It's like European Union, for example. There is many countries, and say, okay, why we don't stop the trade with, we are the first partner of Israel. Why we don't stop to sell weapons? Why we don't stop the trade? Because one country can stop resolution from United Nations. That's a problem. So that's not the problem of United Nations or European Union or things like that. It's the problem of the country themselves and how we can think as a country, as Western country, the multilateralism. So we have to find a new way to apply international law, where we have only the United Nations. So it's not perfect, but that's the only thing we have now for that.
Yeah, you have mentioned a bit about your view as a filmmaker, your point of view making these films. And now here in Germany and probably also elsewhere, you have encountered like that people will accuse everyone that has like a perspective to be biased, or this if you're talking, even naming it as a genocide, people here in Germany have accused that this is a very biased point of view, or that Francesca Albanese makes only biased reports. You know, she has been accused and smeared also of this. You talk about this also in your movie. But I want to hear from you, how do you handle this as a director with these accusations that your film may fall into propaganda?
First of all, when you work on very controversial topics with political violence, you're always the target of attacks. It's normal. I work on Rwandan genocide of the Tutsi. Rwandanese genocide of the Tutsi, the Hutu power who killed 1 million people in Rwanda in 94. They attack me. They go to make some demonstration in front of the cinema. Of course they do. It's politic. But my job, it's not to say, okay, this side and this side, they both have the right to, and the conception of the two sides are equal. It's not objectivity. Objectivity is the fact. So as a journalist and I, as a director, I have just to check the facts. And sometimes the facts, some people are disagree, and especially people who are killing others, especially people who are colonized. You know, when I'm French, so when French army and French people and French authorities start to colonize Algeria, some part of the colonization, you could call it now a genocide. And after the war of independence in Algeria was very, very rough and very difficult for Algerian people. Maybe 100,050 people were killed at that time. So if you support Algerian at that moment, of course, France say, okay, you're a terrorist, you support terrorists. And no, France is the colonizer. That's that. And it's not terrorist in front. Of course, they can use terrorism as a tool. Of course, I don't like, and nobody likes to see civilian people to be killed. But in the history, I think we have no example of people who were colonized and they don't defend themselves, their house, their family. So now when you have this situation in Palestine, for example, and it's very obvious in Palestine, as a journalist, as a cineast, you can only support, because I'm a leftist maybe, of course, I'm on the side with people who are colonized and not the colonizer, of course. But if you accept that part of my point of view, of my personality, it's not propaganda. It's a position about the facts. What is happening now? Israel, the army, Israel authorities killed 75,000 people at least. And it was more than 80% of civilians who have nothing to do with Hamas. That are the facts. And they continue. People now in Gaza are starving. They have no medicines. And they have, of course, politically, no self-determination. So that is obvious. So if I just see that, except if I have a colonizer point of view, I cannot accept that. It's not propaganda. It's moral. It's ethic. And the documentaries, it's always ethic, I think, I hope.
For me, I think your movie, it was also about the denial of truth, or the denial of these facts that you brought up, or that you put together in a documentary, Francesca in a report, but somehow it's always denied, and therefore not act in consequence. But I also liked one part of your documentary, help me remember the exact phrase, but you say that the images of this genocide are there to plain view, but it's the words that make it visible or make it real.
Yeah. Invisible, yes. It's very important. You cannot have any genocide if you don't have any media. Because people who kill other people needs to dehumanize the other camp. So in front of them. So at the very beginning, if I want to make a genocide, if I prepare it, I will say, okay, you're my enemy. And after you say, okay, you're my enemy and you are not human. Like you like an animal or a beast. Israeli authorities told that after October. So there is all the dehumanization. And after, the last step of a genocide is the denied negationism. And it can take a long time. You still find people now who says, oh, Holocaust didn't exist at that time. There is no gas chamber or things like that. You still find some people who says that in France, in Germany, maybe, even if it's illegal. You have people who say, no, Rwanda's genocide of the Tutsi, it's just a war. There is no genocide like that. So our mission, our role as a journalist and documentarist is to create a narrative with the real fact, and because we have to fight against the denied from the beginning. And for me, that's the mission we could have, because mostly there is a specificity with Gaza. That's not like in Rwanda or during the Second World War with the Holocaust. At that time, you have no pictures. Some people knew, but you would have no pictures. From Gaza, you have everything. You have all pictures. You have everything. You can every day you have video. You have journalists who were killed, film the reality of Gaza day by day. So we cannot say, oh, we don't know what is happening there. But Palestinian people are invisible, and there is an invisibilization, of the Palestinian people. Why? If we have picture, that's because that's the word, that the conception we have for Israeli citizen, but in Europe too, of the Palestinian. We doesn't care about what is happening in Gaza, because the media doesn't care, because we are supporting our partner, Israel. So that's the main problem, I think. So we have to fight against fake news, of course. We have a lot of examples of different fake news, even from I'm French, as I told you, with Jean-Noël Barrot, for example. Ministry of Foreign Affairs wanted Francesca to resign post. Based on what? On the fake news, on something she never said. So we have to fight against the fake news. We have to fight against official propaganda, because we have the facts and we have a genocide. We're confronting a genocide.
Yeah. In this battle of for truth, for the words to name this, of course, one of the words that is at the center is genocide. You said yesterday, for example, that Francesca was one of the first to name it a genocide.
She was the first, yeah.
When did you decide to start using it also, and use it also as a central word in your documentary?
It's the genocide. It's not what I learned when you come at the very beginning of the meanings of genocide. It's each genocide has its own particularity. Holocaust is a genocide, and there is a lot of people who were killed. Many Jewish people were killed during the Second World War. It's a genocide, massive killings. In Rwanda too, it's massive killings. So some people said it was the kind of the debate like that in Europe. Say, okay, look, you have only 75,000 people so it's not a genocide because you have million people. Israeli can kill. No, it's not a problem of the number of killings. It's the problem of the intention. Israel has the intention for Palestinians to not live in their own territory. It is the case. It is the intention. So to prove there is genocide, you have many tools for that. You have you can say the declarations of the authorities, the declaration of the army, if the army is just killing leaders because it's of Hamas, for example, because it's a war, or if they touch health center, if they kill children, you have a sniper who killed children. So all that sign says Francesca was Albanese. Said, okay, it's looked like a genocide. And after different commission in United Nations say, oh, it's the characteristic of a genocide. And after it was Amnesty International say, okay, it's a genocide. And after it was the majority of the ONG who said it's a genocide. So with so obvious proofs of that, of course, at the very beginning, it's okay, maybe it's a genocide, or I will question the term of genocide. But 2 years after, for me, there is no doubt about the genocide. And I repeat again, it's not about the number of the people who were killed. It's the intention of the government, actually. And when you are Ben-Gvir, for example, you have no doubt about what he wants. And it's very important because it's a Ministry of Interior Security. Yeah.
Christophe, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the interview
with us. Where can we see your film next?
I hope in Germany, in different cinema, and maybe on Arte the next few months. It was already broadcast on Arte in December. They stopped. Now we can see maybe in the cinema in different places in Germany and in Arte again, I hope.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.